welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. President Buhari returns to the country after 10 days in the UK on a private visit to receive President of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly on Monday. Benue State government probes allegations of rape against security officials in internally displaced persons camps. People's Democratic Party leaders eulogized former President Yar'Adua on the 9th anniversary of his death. And burning Russian plane makes emergency landing at Moscow airport. 13 persons reportedly killed. ChannelsTV.com has more information for you, and on youtube.com/channelsweb you can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS devices from the respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu, and please follow the instructions. Some leaders of the People's Democratic Party have paid glowing tributes to former President Yar'Adua on the 9th anniversary of his death, and his erstwhile deputy and successor, former President Goodluck Jonathan, is among those who have taken to their Twitter handles today to eulogize Nigeria's former leader. In a series of tweets, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan notes, quote, "On this day, 9 years ago, I lost a friend, colleague, brother and boss, President Yar'Adua. He was a selfless leader who placed national interest above personal and ethnic gains." He continues, "Today, I remember and celebrate him for the works that he had done, peace he lived for and homes of peace he built, democracy he loved and democracy he nurtured. We will always remember you for your service. A servant leader, truly you remain." The PDP candidate in the 2019 presidential election, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, also tweeted his eulogy, quote, "This day, 9 days ago, Nigeria lost a patriot and a compassionate leader in President Yar'Adua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to shine his nur on his face." And the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, also took to his Twitter handle to pay tribute to President Yar'Adua. According to Senator Saraki, quote, "Today, I remember the selfless statesman, former President Yar'Adua, who passed on 9 years ago. His legacy of integrity as a great leader will always remain indelible in our hearts. May the mercy of the Almighty Allah continue to be upon him." A federal lawmaker from Kaduna State, Senator Shehu Sani, in a tweet described President Yar'Adua as an honest man, a true Democrat, respecter of the rule of law, and a humble visionary. President Yar'Adua died on May 5, 2010, after a protracted illness, 3 years after he was elected as president on the platform of the People's Democratic Party in 2007. A new national minimum wage is now officially pegged at 30,000 naira for the Nigerian worker. It follows due diligence at the highest levels of government and negotiations with the labor unions a long period of time. In this report, our correspondent Olumide Macaulay looks at the culmination of the processes and expectations from the federal government and workers on the issue.
That presentation to President Muhammadu Buhari by the Presidential Technical Advisory Committee was one of the precursors to the new minimum wage seeing the light of day. And there was one more road to cross.
These three organs have permitted Mr. President now to transmit to the National Assembly a new minimum wage bill. This is in consonance with the fact that the issue of national minimum wage prescription, that's prescribing a new national minimum wage, is in the exclusive list.
Earlier, the labor unions had stood their ground against the proposed 27,000 naira minimum wage of the federal government. This was one of the reasons they preferred.
All of us must sympathize with the condition of Nigeria. 30,000 translates to 1,000 naira per day. 30,000 naira translates to 15 naira per meal for every member of the family. If you have a family of 6, husband and wife and 4 children, it translates to 15 naira per meal.
The House of Representatives passes the 30,000 naira minimum wage bill.
Bill read the third time and passed.
And the Senate followed suit, calling for full implementation.
One of the recommendations that the federal government should put in place procedure that will lead to a review of the revenue sharing formula to enhance states' capabilities towards the implementation of the national minimum wage. That is the key there. Because without that, states will not be able to pay.
The buck stopped at the table of the president, and he signed the 30,000 naira minimum wage bill into law.
I hope you have signed your ticket.
Now that the government has increased the minimum wage of the Nigerian worker, it also expects a corresponding increase in worker productivity. However, the workers, on the other hand, insist that the 30,000 naira is barely enough to meet their needs. Perhaps we may just be back to square one. Olumide Macaulay, Channels Television News.
Well, joining us for more on the issue of the 30,000 naira minimum wage, joining us is Channels Television's data analyst, Babajide Ogunsowo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
So this amount has been approved. Will this have a large positive effect on the economy? And what do you think workers would likely do, save or spend more?
Save or spend more, your guess is as good as mine. But I'll tell you what I think workers will do based on the evidence we have. But I'd like to start from a slightly different perspective and listen carefully to this. Over half a century ago, exactly on this day, the 5th of May 1961, American Alan Shepard became the first American to land in space. Now the question for today is not when will Nigeria land a man in space. The question for today is when will Nigeria create space for that young graduate to land a job? Now let me make myself clear. While a lot of workers deserve a good minimum wage, many more Nigerians deserve their first minimum job. So while the conversation on the minimum wage goes on, we also need to start the conversation on ensuring that over 20 million Nigerians who don't have their first minimum job get a job. That should also be what we should now look at going forward, that we've gotten a minimum wage. But you had asked, will workers save more or spend more? Let me share this secret with you. Would you prefer to be on an 18,000 naira minimum wage that was approved in March 2011 or the 30,000 naira minimum wage of today? Now, the evidence from the National Bureau of Statistics and the Central Bank shows that that worker that was earning 18,000 naira minimum wage in 2011 will be able to buy more if he takes that 18,000 naira to the market than that worker that is collecting 30,000 naira today. In other words, when Congress was signing the 30,000 naira minimum wage, it was actually an approval to lower the minimum wage. Think about it for a second. 18,000 naira of 2011 is worth more than 30,000 naira of 2019. That is how we should look at it.
So these are some concerns, especially looking at Nigeria's economic growth and then the possibility of it reflating the economy.
You know, the concerns about reflating the economy, Henry Ford said that it is not the employer who pays the wage, it is the customer. The employer only handles the money. So at the end of the day, what he's talking about is that customers ensure that businesses make money to pay wages. So when we have concerns over reflating the economy, rather than just focus on the economy broadly, let's focus on the customers. And by customers, let's look at the concentration of labor. And what you find is labor is highly concentrated in the southwest. For instance, you have 18.4 million Nigerians who are employed in the southwest. That is more than all those that are employed in the north central and northeast. So the solution is to reflate the economy. We not only have to diversify the economy, we need to diversify labor. We have an over-concentration of employed persons in one region, while other regions are looking for jobs. So that is the solution to reflate the economy, ensuring that we focus more on the customers, not just focusing on companies.
Let's look at the objective of labor productivity. Some economists believe that a higher minimum wage does not necessarily guarantee higher labor productivity. So What really can we do to boost labor productivity?
Perhaps they're right. If I quadruple your salary, will your productivity quadruple? And so there are valid concerns that a minimum wage does not necessarily guarantee higher productivity. One way that we can look at how productive we are as a nation is we could look at the labor output. But one creative way is to look at our internally generated revenue. And if you look at the IGR report from the NBS for 2018, you find out the problem, and the problem provides the solution. Now, the problem and challenge we have is that there's also an over-concentration of output in the Southwest. In other words, the internally generated revenue of the Southwest in 2018 was 533 billion naira. Approximately half of all internally generated revenue comes from the Southwest. So the solution as well is we need to ensure that we have more regions that are productive. So first is we need to ensure that labor productivity is spread across regions, and we also ensure that regional development cuts across other areas apart from the Southwest. The challenge is the Southwest offers too many opportunities while other regions offer fewer opportunities. And even though those living in the Southwest say those opportunities in the Southwest are dwindling. That is the challenge we face.
I'd like to thank you so much for joining us.
But you know, in the final analysis, remember the word of a wise man. It says, it is not your salary that makes you happy. It is your spending habits. So even if your salary is not too good, watch your spending habits.
To spend and save.
Spend and save.
Thank you, Bawajide Ogunsowo, for joining us. When the news at 10 returns, our community report tonight examines the phenomenon of trade by barter in a market in Cross River State. Please join us again.